Episode 8 of the Pivot Posse. What's up? We've got an amazing guest tonight, or today, this morning, with Alicia White of A White Fitness in Hudson. Alicia, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
So let's hear a little bit about your story, your background, and then we can just get it going.
Okay. I'm a little nervous.
Okay, it's just you and me.
I was fine like 2 seconds ago, and then like when I realized it was being recorded, I'm like,
Dude, you've got the professional background. You're looking good. Don't worry.
all right. So how much should I go into it? Just like talk about.
Just talk about your story, maybe, wherever you want to go. I mean, maybe not from birth. That might be too far back.
Oh, all right. Well, that was the most important part now. Thanks, Mom. So basically, just to kind of go into the alcoholism a little bit, which I know makes a lot of people uncomfortable, and they're like sweeping it on the rug and people don't want to talk about it. But it has a lot to do with my why.
Okay.
Because, I have clients ask me, well, have you ever been overweight? And I'm like, no. And then, I want to be able to relate to my clients, but I'm like, but I was an alcoholic. So I did have to overcome something. So I took my first drink at the age of 15, literally not knowing what it was. And I actually got pulled over by a police officer in Northborough, if you can believe that. And this was
like the one that they have.
Yeah. And this was like back when cops were a lot more family friendly, I guess you'd say. But lucky for me, he called my dad, or rather unlucky for me. So my dad came and picked me up. But again, when I was growing up, you didn't really address things and talk about things, unfortunately. So that was really hard for me. And I didn't know until later, like much later, that my mom was actually an alcoholic for a long time. And she's been sober for a long time now, obviously. She's been sober before I was born, and I'm 34.
Okay. So
but
that's
I
a
didn't
long
know.
time.
Yeah, I didn't know. So I was drinking alcohol, not realizing that I was already kind of predisposed, which I know some people don't believe, but I definitely do.
I think that they've proven that there is a genetic link.
Yeah. So it was a long, long road. So I've been sober about 4 years now. And once I stopped drinking, my dreams kind of started to come back, because I was kind of in that mode of go to work, come home, get drunk, go to work, come home, get drunk. And that's not healthy, obviously. So once I got out of it, I got my NASM, went to school, and I had been lifting weights since I was in my 20s. So I never stopped lifting weights. That was always the thing that stayed. And people would always ask me, oh, do you compete? Are you a trainer? This and that. You should be a trainer. So finally, I just became a trainer, and then after that, I worked at a corporate gym, because that's usually what everyone does. They go work for a corporate gym because you think that's what you're supposed to do. Wasn't happy there for reasons which we all know if we've been a trainer.
Yeah. Yes. There's been, thrown to the wolves and meet your freaking quota and pay you not very much.
Correct. Exactly. Yeah. Perfectly said. So after that, I was like, you know what? I've always wanted to own my own business. And I said I'd own my own business by the age of 30, which didn't happen because I didn't really have a good plan in place.
You were like, I wanted that to happen, but I didn't actually plan for it. So
right. Yeah. So then once the pandemic hit, I got laid off, which was like the first time in my life. And I just was like doing online classes and stuff. And then I was like, why don't I just start my own business? And that's literally what happened. And it's been a year.
That's amazing. So let's just pedal back just a little bit. So what made you decide to stop the drinking?
So if you've ever been an alcoholic, which I know you haven't, but for people who maybe are listening, you kind of are racked by guilt and anxiety and heart palpitations and throwing up and being hungover at work all day and screwing up relationships and having legal problems. I mean, if you're as bad as I was, which I know I wasn't as bad as some people, but I really screwed my life up. And one day my now husband, who's a really good guy, really smart. He was like, you know, if you can't get this together, we're not going to get married. And that was when I was like, okay.
Like, this isn't just affecting me, it's affecting those around me too.
Yeah. And when the worst thing about alcoholism is the denial. That's the worst part of it, because if you can't get over the denial and accepting that you have a problem and moving towards a solution, you're going to always be in that cycle of, well, I'm a functioning adult. I have a full-time job. I can do what I want. Because that's what I used to tell myself.
Yeah, my uncle was like what he liked to call a functioning alcoholic, you know, like he worked all day, he did everything, but as soon as he got home, that's just, you know, he drank.
Mm-hmm.
And my grandfather was an alcoholic as well, like on the streets of Boston, in and out of Hope House. You know, World War II really messed him up. So I've seen firsthand alcoholism in my family. My mom coming over to to my grandfather and pulling beer out of him because otherwise he's going to get thrown out of this yet again halfway house, you know? But I think what you say is really important. I don't think enough people actually put enough emphasis on this, is that the person that is going through it is also struggling with guilt and shame. And those emotions are horrendous.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you don't want to face what you're doing to cause the guilt and shame, but then in order not to face it, you're actually doing what is causing the guilt and shame.
Right.
And it's so hard for the individual, I think,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yep.
Those are two nasty emotions.
Mm-hmm. Yep. The shame is devastating. And then the fact that in our society, oh no, he's fine. It's not a big deal. It's okay. Oh, wasn't it wicked funny when he got in a car accident and this and that? It's not like maybe this person really does have a problem. And the other thing that is frustrating, and I've said it a couple times before, is people will actually tell you, well, just don't drink.
Oh, yeah, like that.
It's
like, but that's like telling like somebody that's been like addicted to sugar, just don't eat that donut that's right in front of you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it is a physical addiction as well as a mental addiction.
It is. You were literally getting cravings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. So.
And so then you were already working out a little bit. So did you, when you were starting to say, okay, that's enough, I'm done,
Mm-hmm.
did you up your workouts and stuff? Did you start doing more things that were healthy?
Well, what happened was I lost my license, so I had to ride my bike to work. So it kind of, yeah, which was fine because it was actually really, really good for me because it made me stronger. It was like 6 miles to work each way. So it made me really strong, physically and mentally.
Awesome.
You know, so that was a really good opportunity. But as far as like with lifting weights, you know, at that point I was just so tired that I didn't really have as much time to lift weights. The other thing too was like pride. That was why I rode my bike, was pride. You know, like I'm gonna get myself to work and I don't need I don't need someone to drive me.
Like on like a tricycle, like I'll take this little kid's tricycle if I have to just to get to freaking work.
Yeah, exactly. I'll give you $10, kid.
Oh my God, I love it. So then you lost your license, riding your bike, and then when did you finally say, yeah, I'm gonna become a trainer?
Well, I was going to school at the Academy of Sports Fitness Training in Hudson. Which
that's right next to Cressy, right?
Yeah, it's run by Shalana Quaz, and I don't know if that's her last name anymore. Sorry, that may be the wrong last name. But she is an awesome teacher. So I got to go to her 8-month hands-on program. And thankfully, because of the lifting weights and all that, I knew some of the stuff, but it doesn't prepare you for the amount of detail and knowledge you actually need to have.
And I don't think that people understand that when it comes to trainers. They just think that it's easy, but like you're NASM, I'm NASM. Like the kinetic chain and like learning all of the compensations and being able to like watch somebody squat and be like, oh, you're pronating and now we're going to need to like work on this or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
There's a lot.
Yeah, there is. And I definitely went into it a little arrogant because I was like, well, I've been lifting weights for 10 years. So, you know, I know what this is. And then like the first day of class, I was like, oh God, there's actually a lot, but it's good.
Yeah, it is. And so then so then you started working in the gyms
Yep.
and you
And working full time too. Yeah.
and working full time too. So yeah, so you were a project manager working in the gyms full time.
Yep.
And then you got laid off.
Yep.
And you were like, what if this is an opportunity? Basically.
Yeah. I was like, this is silly. And I ended up not only getting laid off, but I also was ready to quit anyways because there was some stuff going on at the place that I was at. And I didn't feel that they were handling things correctly. So I sent them my resignation letter and was like, hey, you know, you guys have stuff you need to work on. And I don't want to work here anymore because of that.
Yeah. That's good, right? So it all worked out. So then you opened up AY Fitness.
Yep.
Right? And so now what do you guys offer?
I mean, I think I always get a little, I don't know if the word annoyed is good, but I get annoyed when people ask me what my specialty is because I'm like, I don't want to have a specialty because if I have a specialty, I can't help everyone. Then I'm narrowing myself down. But I would say my specialty is making people stronger through weight training.
Through weight training.
And not just stronger physically, mentally.
Yeah, I think that you have to be. You know, I think that in order for you to have any new consistent kind of healthy habit that's about you taking care of yourself, you have to be stronger mentally as well, you know? Yeah.
So for me, it's about empowering people, especially women, through Olympic lifts. We don't start obviously right off with Olympic lifts, okay? We don't start it off. But because there's so many women that are like, what? Bench press? That's not for women. What? Back squat? That's not for women. Deadlifts? That's not for women. And it's like, okay, do you see all these fitness models? Yeah. Do you see how beautiful they are and how muscular they are? Yeah, I want that body. Great. Squat.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Bench press.
It's funny though, because like you and I both trainers, like when I started out, I was more yoga than anything else. So I didn't do like the big heavy lifts for a long time. And like the powerlifting was actually something that like I tried to do. And I was like, nope, this is not me. I'm not ready for this. And then like later on in my career, I started doing like, I mean, I always did deadlifts, but it was like the back squat scared the crap out of me. I'm not going to lie. Like spinal loading scared me a lot. And then chest press, I don't really do just because I was doing yoga all the time. So I was already like super tight here, but like the lats and like the pull-ups and stuff like that. But you're right. Like when you have like 135 pounds on your back and you're squatting down and getting back up, you cannot tell me that you're not going to feel strong mentally getting out of there as well. Right?
Correct.
When you're like doing a deadlift and you're lifting up and it's like 165 and you're like, I could literally pick somebody up right now if I needed to and not throw out my back.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
And
that is super empowering.
Absolutely. And I tell my clients that I'm like, funny question. Can you actually pull your own weight?
Yeah.
If you were in an emergency situation, could you get yourself out of jail?
Yeah.
And a lot of people, the answer is no.
Yeah. Well, like even having people sit cross-legged and then stand up without using your hands.
Yes.
They're like, you know, and it's crazy. Like you got to think about this. If you can't get up without using your hands, you need to work on your strength and your flexibility and your mobility, because what does that mean if something's like wrong and you can't use your hands? If you just like got burnt and you're on the ground, do you really want to push your hands down? No.
Yeah. Or like, you know, the whole thing too is independence for older populations.
Yes.
Because, you know, older populations, they want to walk all day. And the thing is, that does not keep your muscles and your bones strong. So if you fall, you're screwed.
Yeah. And you got to remember that like as we get older, right, the muscles start to decline and they start, you know, the percentage gets less and less and less.
Correct.
It's super important. Funny story, I'll never forget. I was training a guy and he had 2 knee replacements. And you know how like when you train, you're supposed to look at like the knees and the toes and everything, the alignment.
Yes.
And I'm like, Ron, they're not lining up right. And he looked at me, he goes, Liz, that's how they put them in. And I was like, I didn't even realize, Alicia. I was like, oh, dang. So when you have a knee replacement, you got to remember they're not born like that. So the doctor might have put them in a little cockeyed.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Yes. We had a client like that in one of our classes, and she had, I want to say she had both hips replaced. And so getting up and
That's
down was
hard.
incredibly difficult for her. Doing certain squats were very difficult for her. And it's like, man, it really does make an impact.
Yeah, it does. And for people with hip replacements, they've got to plan for the pain and walk through it anyway. Because if they don't start moving soon, it's going to atrophy and get worse, right?
Correct. Well, that's
So,
why another thing that's really important is prehab. And prehab, a lot of people haven't even heard about, which I think is crazy.
it is crazy. Because you want to get into the best physical shape you possibly can before you go in there, because then you can recover that much faster.
Correct.
100%. So what do you think was the biggest pivot for you?
I think probably getting laid off, because the gym was pretty much my home. That's where my friends were. That's where I ate my meals.
Yeah.
That's where I worked out and had my clients, and I was there a lot. So even if I wasn't worked, like, as a trainer in a corporate gym, you'd have so many gaps.
Yeah.
So in between the gaps, you're walking the floor, you're working out, you're talking to staff.
Members. Yeah.
Yeah, and members. And then having that taken away, it wasn't just the job that got taken away. It was the social interaction and the life fulfillment also.
Yeah.
And so that was really hard. So after, I was depressed. A lot of people were and still are, sadly. And I was like, okay, I need to adapt. How am I going to adapt?
I love it. That's such a good question to ask, because it puts it on you again. Like I've talked about this with, I think Janessa, is like, it's always better when you can put the responsibility on you, because then you don't have to worry about what somebody else is doing. If you can take it on and do as much as you can, it's in your power then, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right.
And I couldn't wait for someone else, like you said, to make a decision for me. So I decided, let me do something here.
I love it. I love it. And then how would you define success? This is a hard one, right? I feel bad when I ask this, but I love it.
You're like, this is can I go back? No, I'm just kidding. So when you ask how I define success, do you mean how I define it for myself or
Yes.
Okay. Well, I always have this vision in my head because I project a lot. I have this, and I don't know why, and my husband's not in the vision either, which I feel bad. He must be at the beach house sleeping. So my vision is that I'm on a beach with two dogs running down a beach, and there's the ocean's like splashing, and it's like early morning. So financial independence, and also like spiritual independence, and just feeling fulfilled. Feeling joy.
Feeling joy, freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fulfillment. And also mobility, still being able to move, Yes.
And of course, the animals.
You got to.
Yeah.
I'm a huge animal lover.
Yeah.
And then what are 3 tips that you would give to somebody that's either trying to leave their career or starting their own business?
Mm-hmm. Plan. So make sure you have a good plan in place. If you're not sure to how to put a plan in place, have a coach or mentor. And I suggest paying a coach or mentor, because there's going to be more accountability there than someone just giving you advice because they're your friend or your whoever.
Yeah, and it's accountability to yourself too, because you're actually investing. Like, people think investing in a coach is about the coach, but when you pay the money, you show up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's like a trainer, right? You might know what to do, but you're not showing up on your own. You pay the money, you
Correct.
show up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The other thing is ask questions. Don't be arrogant. Don't think you know everything, because you don't. And if your mind isn't open, then you can't learn.
I love it.
Because that's something that I have to work on, so that's why that just comes into my mind.
I understand that 100% though, because when I started out training, you get your cert, you think you know everything. Plus my mom was a personal trainer for the Air Force for so many years, so I grew up with it.
Yeah, that's
so I
cool.
just assumed that like I need to know everything. And then when I started at my first job, they were like, well, what about this? I'm like, yeah, I know that. And I'm like, kind of like, yeah, of course I know that because I have this cert and that says that I should know all of this, right? And then like it took me a little bit to go back and be like, can we just kind of go over cleans again? Because they're kind of a little complicated.
Yeah. I think the other thing too is there might be someone that you think isn't smart or maybe isn't at your level. But the thing is, you can learn something from everyone.
Yes.
You really can. So just and you don't know the struggle that people are going through. So try to be respectful to other people and listen.
Yes.
And then my last thing would be follow your instinct, follow your gut. Because a lot of times your instinct is right. That doesn't mean having a knee-jerk reaction to everything. It means listening to that little voice inside of you. If you're not happy, there's a reason you're not happy.
100%. Stop ignoring it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So for people that have problems connecting, because I know a lot of people just have been silencing their own internal voice for so long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How would you suggest somebody go about reconnecting to it?
Set time aside for yourself.
Yeah.
Make yourself a priority. And especially for women, we tend to sacrifice ourselves. We sacrifice ourselves for our family, for our parents, for our job, for our kids. And we don't put ourselves first. And it's okay to put yourself first, because if you are selfish with yourself and you love yourself, then you're going to be able to treat other people better and come and show up as your best self. If you're tired and angry and guilty and sad and overweight and sick, then you can't be your best self for your family and for your colleagues and your friends.
Right. And you'll be like full of like resentment too. Right. Because then you'll almost feel like you're not putting yourself first because of them, Exactly. And then that can just create resentment within relationships and stuff too.
Right.
So what are some things that AY Fitness are offering right now that could, like, a new member could try out or something?
Anyone is welcome to come in at any time and do a one-on-one with me for no charge.
Yeah.
So they can come in, have an assessment, have a chat, tell me about their issues that they're having, how they need help, anytime.
That's huge. That's huge. Okay. So then do you have anything else you want to let everybody know about?
Well, we're breaking ground soon for a new building. So that'll be cool. It's going to be 22 by 24 foot space, and I'm planning on buying some new equipment. Some Concept 2 rowers, hopefully some type of cable machine of some kind, a place to do wall balls, and then we're going to be having some type of celebration in July. So hopefully we'll be able to have people over for some food and that kind of stuff.
That'd be amazing. All right. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to get us off live stream.